This Bubba Exotic Motorsports production is brought to you in part by Blog Talk Radio, host of our #1 rated internationally syndicated automotive podcast as heard on the Bubba's Motorsports Network, and by Schumacher Chevrolet, SchumacherAuto.com, Schumacher.com, SchumacherAuto.com, and finally by Robertson Racing LLC.com, RobertsonRacingLLC.com. Visit them for all your lubricant needs. Good morning, everybody watching. We're coming to you live from inside the main facility here at Bubba's Exotic Motorsports. Bub, we're dealing with a really iconic car today we're going to share with everybody.
Come on, you can't go wrong with it. Just any Shelby Cobras, doesn't matter who made it, there's zillions of kit cars out there that are made because these cars were so truly iconic from Carroll Shelby. And this is just another fine example of it, the Superformance kit. You know the entire history on this car, which is one of the sons of the brother of the daughter's sisters.
Uncle's, niece's, last dad's brother. Yeah, something like that.
In-law.
Exactly. Actually, the story behind this car is, as Bub said, this is a Superformance kit. Superformance actually considers these the Mark IIIs, not actually the Cobras.
I call them the Mach 3.
The Mach 3, whatever
Mark
it is.
3.
However,
Actually,
it is the only kit car, the only Cobra kit car that Carroll Shelby puts his personal seal of approval on.
Yep.
That's how close these things are to what he originally designed and built.
That's right.
This car, like you and I are a father and son team, the founders of this company, Superformance, in South Africa are a father and son team. This car originally belonged to the son. It was the second car they did out.
I guess you're lucky you don't find any wild lions that come delivered with these too.
There was a couple giraffes in the gas tank though.
Yeah.
How about that, man?
Yeah.
So, Bub, tell us a little bit
I think if I
about
had one of these though, my plate would be Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. That's pretty good. Would you have gazelle?
You can't shorten it enough. 7 letters, it's not going to happen.
Gazelle antlers on the front or something?
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a lion's tail in the back.
With what's the thing from the
rhinoceros.
There you go.
There we go.
Right on the windshield.
That's right. A
That would be
rhinoceros, gazelle, and a lion tail chasing it.
Nothing wrong with that.
That would work. Bub, tell us a little bit about what's going on with this car here.
Yeah, so this is another one of those, again, a super, super good build on this car. You know the history on this thing. You just mentioned a little bit of it. This car came into us from one of our really high-end clients. He's owned the car for a super long time. He's always driven it, always enjoyed it. But this past recent drive, he went out and wasn't really doing what it should have done. It was running hot on him, overheating, misfiring. It wasn't really doing exactly what this thing should do, especially with the 427 motor that's in it. This thing should just straight up haul. It's that simple. So, of course, I do all my basics, my fundamentals. I wanted to go through fluids first, check coolant, check oil, make sure that there was no mix or combination of the two. He had mentioned that the car had overheated on him, so that was one of the first things I checked was, levels, coolant levels, making sure there was no mixture of, water getting into oil or vice versa, which would indicate a head gasket and overheating temperature, something blue.
Sure.
I haven't found any of those conditions yet, but what I did find was in my second diagnostics of it was finding that the car was way out of tune. The timing was completely off from where it should be, and a lot of people think that overheating is caused by...
This is a very important point, ladies and gentlemen. Please listen to this, because for those of you that are still on carbureted applications, Bub's going to give you a bit of, specifically carbs, Bub's going to give you a bit of technical advice that I guarantee 90% of you have thrown away thousands of dollars to try to correct. So Bub, please, over to you.
Yeah, so, continuing on, it's a lot of people think that your car is running hot. Maybe you have a 180-degree thermostat in it and you're running 190, 195. Okay, that's fine. That's where you should be. A lot of these guys think that these cars, if you put a 180 thermostat, you're going to run 180 max. That's not the case. These motors like to run efficient between 180 to 200. That's where they want to run. That's their temperature. Just like modern motors, all the LS motors like to run 225. That's where they like to run. So having a car that runs at 190, 195, 200 is perfectly normal. That's not overheating. 230, when coolant starts boiling, 240, that's when you start looking at overheating conditions.
That's a problem.
So in this case, a lot of people go through and they start dumping a bunch of money into the cooling system, bigger radiator, bigger fans, faster fans, higher flow fans, CFM, the thermostat. They remove the thermostat. Guys do all kinds of nonsense when 99% of the time it's all related to air-fuel ratio and your ignition timing with spark. Those two things right there, if they are not set right, this engine will pre-detonate. It will run hot. It'll run 10, 20, 30 degrees hotter than it should. So it's one of those things, you have to start there and get your basics done and then go through the rest.
So, Bub, one of the things you found, this is a Holley carburetor that's set up on here. This particular carbureted application uses 2 sight glasses and 2 float bowls. Is that correct?
Very simple, yes. And there's a lot, too, just to touch on that real quick. With Holleys, with Demons, with Quick Fuel, any of that, Holley 4-barrel 4150 style carburetor that most people consider it, you have either sight glasses on the passenger side bowls of the fuel bowls, or you have flathead screw plugs. They're brass plugs.
Correct.
You can unscrew and actually let fuel run out at a certain degree or a certain point. And that's how you want to set your fuel levels. And very first thing you have to set is fuel pressure. If you don't set that fuel pressure first, any excess fuel, if your floats are too high, if they're too low, you're not going to be able to set and properly dial in your air fuel mixture screws, and that's where everyone screws it up. You have to do it through a series of process.
So, Bub, in the case of like this type of Holley setup or quick fuel or whatever it may be, when those two sight glasses are set properly, when the fuel levels inside of those sight glasses properly, how would the average guy know, okay, because we may have somebody out there listening going, I can't get the car to run right, they're talking to what's my problem.
Yeah.
How will he be able to go out now, lift his hood, and look directly at those sight bowls located on the passenger side of this car? How does he know the fuel levels are proper in there?
Okay, so most importantly, the absolute most important step before getting into any tuning, any adjustments, is get your engine up to operating temperature. That's number one.
Number one,
It has to be at
operating
operating
temperature.
Number one. The reason for that is what happens to fluids as they heat up.
They evaporate.
Well, they move around. Fluid levels will change. They will
Okay.
rise, they will lower. So in this case, as fuel gets hotter and hotter and hotter in the car, fuel naturally rises a little bit in the float bowl. So you want to make sure that it's running at whatever temperature it's going to run, 180, 190, 200, whatever that normal operating temperature is. Let it sit and idle for 20, 30 minutes as long as it's not overheating. Make sure that you've got it at operating temperature, then you can go ahead. In this case, this carburetor has clear glass sight bowls, so you can actually look in and see the fuel levels as the car is idling. That's a very easy way to do it. It's a beautiful way to do it. In this case, what you would do is you would set through the float adjustment, which is a 5/8 nut and a flathead screw on top of the front and rear float bowls. You would literally just loosen that screw and adjust the nut either a quarter or eighth of a turn, up or down, whichever way you need to go, to get your fuel levels dead center in the middle of that sight glass. So perfect circle, dead center. Just like if you were looking at an airplane instrument at your horizon line.
Okay, and your
Just that simple.
artificial horizon.
That's it.
Right
So circular sight glass, dead center. That's where these floats need to be set at idle, not revving the car, not doing anything with it, with the proper amount of fuel pressure. That's got to be the next key thing. You have to make sure that most carbs can only handle 6 to 6.5 pounds of pressure. Any more than that, and it's always going to push past that fuel level, no matter what you do. If you've got 9 pounds of fuel, which a lot of guys do this too, they don't have regulators, they'll run 9 pounds of fuel up to a carb that can only accept 6 pounds. No matter what you do with those floats, it's always going to push past. So make sure your pressure is right. Most of the time you can get, for example, Holley carburetors, you can get a Holley red fuel pump. It runs 6.5 pounds, exactly what you need if you're on an electric setup. Mechanical pumps on the motor, most of the time, 70–80% of bolt-on pumps are going to be 5.5 to 6.5 pounds. That's where you need to be. Now, if you're working with, let's say, a different type, a Holley carburetor that has the brass plugs, flathead screws, those, what you have to do is physically unscrew the plugs, both of them, front and rear. You unscrew them out of the float bowl from the passenger side as the car is idling at operating temperature. And what you're shooting for is not fuel at that center mark, because it's just going to be flowing out on you. You want to turn the floats down to a point where if you just take the car, I do it with my legs, and you just rock the car a little bit as it's idling, wait until just a splash of fuel trickles out. If you're at that point, you're dead on where you need to be. It's the same thing Holley tells you in their instruction booklet. It's exactly how to set them so that your float levels are right. You'll have perfect starting every time. You won't have overheating issues. You won't have flooding. Then you can move into the next piece, which is air fuel mixture screws.
And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, Bub is considered amongst the top in the industry today. At 28, this is the kind of stuff he's walking around with. It's twice as technical when you start getting into these fuel-injected platforms as well. Bub, as you were walking around this car, one of the things you looked at, because you do look at everything, you looked at the spark plugs themselves, and this is one of the spark plugs that actually came out of this vehicle right here. Bub, tell us a little bit about this plug, whether it's the right application, and what's going on with it.
Yeah, so this plug here is an NGKR. A lot of guys run NGKR plugs, depending on whatever engine application, and this is something that's very important because every application requires a specific plug. It's not just like one set of plugs fits all motors. That's way incorrect.
That's right.
So you have to make sure that you're running the correct spark plug diameter, meaning the diameter of the threads, and also the reach. This is the most important, especially for guys with Chevrolets. Small block motors in particular, there were two different reaches. There was a short reach of 0.460, and then there was a long reach of 0.75, a 3/4 inch, or just under half, either of them. So this thread reach is very important, and a lot of guys will also have overheating engines because they don't know that the plugs they have in their motor are short reach plugs in a long reach hole, so it's not even getting down into the combustion chamber where it should. Therefore, you'll run lean, and all the time you'll run hot. So one of the things you want to do is check your plugs, make sure your reach is correct, make sure your temperature is correct. In this case, all I had to do was simply look at the head that was on this car, Edelbrock Performer RPM, pull up the instructions on the company site, and they tell you exactly what plug to start with as a baseline starting, and that's what we're going to do here with the Champion RC12YCs. Get these set in the car. Well, here's one of them here, ready to go. And then what we're going to also do, knowing that we have the correct plug now for this cylinder head, for this application, now what I do is take that and move it into the next step. What's the next step? What's powering this plug? MSD distributor, MSD ignition. So a 6AL box with a 6,000 RPM limiter. Very simple. Another thing you can do is just go out on that company's website at MSD and you can look it up. With their ignition systems, you can increase a gap fairly large depending on your application because of how large that spark is. In this case, this motor is not running any more than 9.5 to 1 compression, pump gas, easy setup, easy to tune. So what we were working with was a plug that was originally gapped at 30 thousandths. MSD ignitions create such a large spark with this distributor with the 6AL box that anything up to 10.5 to 1 with MSD, you run 50 to 60 thousandths gap. So I'm going to start this at 60 thousandths, see how the motor performs from there, get my air fuel mixtures right, and then we'll see how it runs.
So Bob, the difference in the spark plug gap between, say, a 30,000 and a 60,000 is not only twice, but what effect can that possibly have on the heat or cooling range of that cylinder?
Big time. I mean, something like this, so a lot of people think a smaller gap or larger gap, it's always hard because some people get information from here, from forums, from this place, from that place. Start with whatever your basics are, like what I've just done. Your cylinder head, you know the plug. Your ignition system, you know what type of plug gap to run. That's the most important to start, just to get a baseline, because every car is different. This may like 60, it may like 55, it may like 50. You move around in that 5 thousandths range a little bit and see how it performs each time. Make sure you tune it every time because it's going to change the way it reacts. But for example, like this is a difference of 30 thousandths of a gap. That's literally almost 1/8 of an inch. I mean, that's huge.
It's big.
So that's actually not 1/8 of an inch. It's like a 16th, but still, it's a really big difference between 30 thousandths and 60 thousandths for what this thing's going to do from an idle mixture standpoint, air fuel all the way across the board, and at a cruise, it's going to be a larger flame at a 60 thousandths gap, and it's going to burn more efficient, which is what this car needs if it's dumping this much fuel.
Correct. I think one of the things that Bub's touched on here that's very important, he said that there are a lot of forums out there, but if we back up a couple steps, we also recall that Bub said he went to MSD's website and he also went to Edelbrock's very nice website. The forums are great in some ways. However, they're littered with people's opinions. And there are people who are trying a bunch of different things to get to something. Always go back to the product manufacturer, like Bob does, and work with the information from their research and design department that we know works. And we see a lot of people in here, Bob, who say, I read this online or I read this on a forum. Don't believe it, man.
No, not at all. And that's the biggest misconception really in this industry is there's so many guys that everybody has an opinion with these cars for some reason. I don't understand why, but everyone has an opinion and they all think it's right. No one will admit when it's wrong or if their opinion just outright sucks and is wrong. It's just, if it is, it is. If it's not, it's not.
Meanwhile, it comes into you because it's not running and they read it online.
Right. So one of the things everybody can do it out there. Everyone, if you're not reaching out to us from a technical standpoint, whether it be with questions, emails, comments on our live stream, whatever it is, take the time, learn what your application is and what you're trying to do with it, whether it be an American muscle, a classic, an iconic, modern performance, turbocharged, supercharged, import, European, it doesn't matter. Find out what you're trying to do, what your goal is, and what you're working with. If you don't know those things, you'll never be able to build it. It's like trying to freaking make a cake with no instructions. I have no idea how many eggs? 2, 6, 12?
I read online it was 15.
I don't know.
How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, you can always call us here for technical advice at 561-748-2926 or email us at sales@bubbasexoticmotorsports.com. You can also go to our website, bubbasexoticmotorsports.com, and come to us 24/7. There's a place to send questions to us as well. We'll always take the time to answer every question, and we always do, Bub.
We do.
We get a ton of them throughout the week. I personally sit down and answer them. I have a meeting with Bub in the morning. We talk about this technical stuff very early in the morning while everyone's asleep, and I get these answers formulated and back out to you. So we'll respond to your questions.
That's it. I think it turned out really good.
So, Bob, in closing, doing the right thing is what makes the car perform and function properly. I think you also have to do a clutch in this as well.
I do, yep.
But that'll be another episode, right?
Yep.
So we have another announcement, Bub. We will be, this week on the podcast, we'll be talking about our new magazine article. We touched briefly on that yesterday.
Yep.
We again invite everybody in the local area to join us tomorrow down in Abacoa. It's going to be a big deal down there. It's the grand opening of Miss Outlaw Boutique, MS
Gonna be a
Outlaw
blast.
Boutique. It's going to be a fun time, man.
Yeah, I'm
It's
looking
gonna be-
forward to it.
It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a really good time.
Well,
And it's
I
going
gotta
to
get back to doing this thing, man.
All right.
We're way past 5 minutes again.
That's okay. Everybody enjoys these technical questions. Yes, our producer Matt has a question for us.
We have some comments from Robertson Racing LLC.
Yes.
Robertson Racing would like to know, would fuel octane play a role in timing and temperatures?
Okay,
Oh, big time.
so
Yep.
we have a question, ladies and gentlemen. Our producer just threw a cross at us. The guys over at Robertson Racing LLC, would like to know if fuel additives would play a difference and make a difference
Yeah.
in it. How is it?
Well, big time. I mean,
Octane
and that's a
additives.
great question. One of the things that most people have really another big misconception with is fuels and what to put in their motor and what kind of tuning they should be running. Me personally, I like to tune all of my stuff so that it runs on all pump gas, no matter whether it be naturally aspirated, again, all the way across the board. Trucks, bikes, cars, turbo, supercharged, it doesn't matter. I like to try to run pump gas. We can get 93 octane here. We can get 100 octane here at some pumps, actually, at Sunoco's. So, I like to build everything all the way across the board and make sure that my tunes are going to fit that wide broadband as well. So in this case, on this Ford small block motor, what I'm going to do in my final tuning and timing on this car is I'm going to set this thing at a 34-degree advanced timing, which is going to be really nice. So if this car goes from here, maybe it goes to Nevada, maybe it goes to Michigan, it goes wherever it's going to go, this car will start and run very nice on whatever that
Pump
state
gas.
can get, 87, 89, 90, 91, 93, whatever anybody can get. However, there is a very big difference, especially carbureted applications, which is where that good question comes in terms of tuning. So my timing will stay the same. Ignition timing will stay the same, spark will stay the same, all of that will change, or not change.
Right.
However, the air fuel mixtures will change whatever that temperature is you're operating in. Here, we're 90 degrees all the time. So naturally, if I were to go 2 turns out on the carb here, it's going to be rich. If you take this and go somewhere else where it's a lot cooler and you're down at 50 degrees, that may be either perfect for it or it may be way
Create a
too
lean condition?
Right, way too lean. So what you may have to do is move it around a little bit. So especially with carburetors, there is nothing that monitors that system. There's no electronic sensors, there's no oxygen sensors, there's no air fuel mixtures. That's all preset through a computer. Where these, you have to tune them, whether it's here, whether it's in a colder atmosphere, you have to tune for that environment.
So the answer is, there is no need for octane additives if your car is set for
If
the
the
air
tune
fuel.
is set right from a timing standpoint. However, a fuel mixture, you will always have to adjust wherever you are, your location.
In a carbureted application.
Yep.
Very good, Bob. I hope that answers the question out there. All the great guys at Robertson Racing, man, up there in Pennsylvania, good crew of people up there. They're also a part of what we do here.
Yep.
So, Bub, we're going to let you get back to work on this thing. I'm going to jump over on the other side and see if I can't scratch
Oh,
something
no,
to help you
just
out.
just
How
go
about
that way, exit left.
Exit stage left, go right off the film stage floor. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. Make sure you start out tomorrow and every day to touch somebody's life in a positive way. Thank you for doing it Bubba style with us. Bub, until next time,
Well, it's till tomorrow. Keep on doing it Bubba style.
let's keep on doing it Bubba style.
I need my gapper.
The yapper, I think the yapper was over here, right? So you already took care of the air cleaner tie down, right? Or the air cleaner, right, Bob?